Bill Conway's here, one of our favorite guests. Bill Conway is a Chicago alderman. In what ward?
34th Ward. Steve, thanks for having me back. When you heard, I thought my intro was going to be, we have some leftover news for you, and we have Alderman Bill Conway here. Let's talk about neutered cats and Bill Conway.
Here's leftover Alderman Bill Conway. No, I have great respect for you, not just as a Navy vet, but as a dad and a family man and someone who takes a lot of crap. Because as an alderman, you will get a lot of that. But one of the things we stumbled on last week was this thing your office deals with, and I don't even know if you were aware of it prior to election, and that's the aldermanic budgeting menu, where you choose from stuff on the menu to spend your $1.5 million on. What do we decide, Nick? Was it basic infrastructure costs for the $1.5 million?
Yeah, pothole repairs, maybe curb bump outs, that kind of stuff.
And that's what my office is using them for. I can't speak for the other 49, but that's what we're using it for infrastructure.
The confusion for me is a city with a gazillion dollar budget. Why are you getting $1.5 million for a ward your size to fix the roads? It doesn't seem like enough, is my point.
Yeah, well, it is worth noting there are a lot of different other ways to get projects done. You know, you'll have...
That sounds nefarious.
It does, but they'll have been previously scheduled by the Chicago Department of Transportation, or there'll be some kind of larger part of some larger initiative that spans multiple wards. You'll occasionally have if there's a giant building going up in your ward that they'll be doing some things to do the streets improved otherwise. So the $1.5 million is part of it. When I came to office, we were very backlogged in that. And part of the reason for that is, my ward was brand new, carved out of 5 other wards. And the other alders essentially knew that their voters weren't there anymore. So almost for a year, very little capital expenditure was done. So we walked in, we had a significant amount of backlog in terms of what we would do. And we're still working through it, but the streets of the 34th Ward are getting better every day.
Well, the thing that is confusing, I think, to a lot of people and the people that pay the taxes in the city, whether you live here or work here, is that they're probably not going out for bid. You have a menu. You don't get to choose who patches the roads, do you?
No, but that's something that CDOT will handle, the Chicago Department of Transportation.
So it's not Bill's House of Blacktop?
It is not. Well, they do take it out to bid and get various folks. Sometimes those things are done internally as well.
Okay. All right. So we got a couple of things to hit you with here. One is, how's the mayor doing?
Ooh.
I thought a soft question.
Start there.
Well, we're working on a lot of things. We had something I've been working on is, how can we in City Council get oversight of the COVID funds that have been spent? The mayor announced on December 29th of 2023 that he had spent $95 million of the COVID funds into the 2023 budget. Obviously, just us finding out about that after it's already been spent is obviously preposterous. So I put forth an ordinance that will essentially restrict that to amounts greater than $1 million, which is the amount that they're allowed to spend in emergencies.
Well, it's funny is we were talking about this in relationships, and Tom, you didn't give me permission to say this on the air, so it wasn't Tom. But Tom has a household arrangement, which I think is good and understandable. That if you're going to spend more than a couple $100 on something, let's talk about it.
Right.
So you're talking about if you're going to spend city. If you're going to spend some of this money over a certain number, you need to tell us.
Yeah, and there are $400 million of COVID funds remaining. So it's important that we in City Council
should have a say,
have oversight and transparency on that. And it's worth noting, of the 50 alders, I have 27 sponsors on this, and with getting more by the day. Unfortunately, despite having a majority of council that's for it, when it was introduced last week at council, my friend, Vice Mayor Walter Burnett, sent it to the Rules Committee to try and to kill it, essentially. But I am confident we'll be able to get out of the Rules Committee and get it going, because it's not right that the mayor should have a $400 million piggy bank of leftover COVID funds without us really having oversight of that.
That money sounds gigantic, and obviously it's Chicago, but why is there that much money 2.5 years after COVID wound down?
They gave us a lot of money. is part of the reason that. But it is.
But it goes to the larger question.
It does, and it is larger.
Question
there's a lot
is
of different projects.
Inflation comes from too much money in the money system, basic economics. You didn't know back then as a government how much you're going to need, how much you're not going to need. But we got more than we needed.
Well, there was a lot of revenue. We the people had a lot of revenue that had to be replaced at the tax levels. Certainly the economy essentially shut down or was significantly impacted for a year and a half. So, we received a lot of that, and now we still have it because it was smoothed out in the way you spend it. So, to your point, we have to make sure that we use it all, but we also have to make sure that we're doing it on projects that have that will have a lasting impact for Chicago.
Probably the COVID menu as opposed to the other menu.
Well, so I'm having ward envy, right? So my ward,
Jane, you're welcome to come down to the 34th ward.
I was right next door, Little Italy, and part of your ward includes Little Italy, but I'm just on the other side of Racine, just south of Taylor Street. So
oh gosh, you're just outside, Jane. You're
and
just
you know
outside.
Say about wards, size matters.
That's right. So I have ward envy.
Well, oddly enough, the 34th ward is the smallest ward in the city by area, but in terms
of population and businesses,
no. It is a booming ward.
But when you're talking about using this funding to improve the ward and the things in it that will make your people living there happier, if it's close to the border, do you work then hand in hand with the other aldermen? Like ours was Jason Irvin. Like, do you work together and say, you know what, this area kind of seeps into your ward. I want to use our fundings, pull them together to help because we're all one city.
Yeah, we will work when there are projects that go across ward boundaries. We'll work together to get those done, and we can share the cost on that menu. And that's also true of TIF projects that will go across. So if there's a project in one ward, but the TIF boundary includes multiple wards, we will both work together on that to make sure it's a good use.
It's a longer answer to a shorter question than I'm about to give you, but tax increment financing, TIF projects,
yes,
always seem like a bet on the come. And after 2007, 2008, it seems like a risky way to finance anything. But if it's based in bonds, as I understand it is, it does seem to be a solid way to do it as long as it's not abused. Yes or no?
Well, we can use it to really, for example, there's certain, putting money into our infrastructure and schools. It's another way to do that. Now, the biggest TIF in the city happens to be LaSalle Street. And you may recall that in the prior administration, they put forth 5 projects that they wanted to get TIF funds to help convert some of the office space into multi-use and some residential property. So now, unfortunately, this administration has not yet backed that or supported that, which if we don't put some money into LaSalle Street, I am worried that the impact that will have, as every major city in the world has to rethink its central business district, and we're no different, but we really need to start doing it.
The migrant problem, when we come back, Bill Conway thought he'd have a good time when he came in. Look at what we're doing to him.
We'll be nice to him.
Bill Conway's here, Navy vet, and member of the reserve still. How often do you get called?
Well, we do 1 weekend a month and then 2 weeks a year as well.
Do you know where you're going on that one weekend?
Yeah, so the 1 week I'll do it at Great Lakes or Fort Sheridan, somewhere close by, which makes it convenient. On the 2 weeks, you can go a variety of places. I think I'll have a week of it. Will be in Norfolk, Virginia, doing who knows what.
Sure.
The other week, who knows? Which still to be determined.
What is it that America doesn't know about our armed services right now? That's a positive thing for your fellow brothers and sisters who sign up to protect us. I mean, I think we live in a time where most people have great support and love for people that do what you have done. But what else should they know?
Well, what is incredible about being in the military is you come together with a lot of different folks that are not like you. The military is very diverse. I think people think it's like a bunch of poor white kids from the South, and it's not that at all. It is very, very diverse from all different walks of life. And you come together with a lot of different people, and the only thing you're focused on is completing the mission, regardless of your politics, views, et cetera. So it is it's an inspiring thing to be part of, and something that I take forward from my military experience into my job as alderman is when you're in the military and you're a junior officer, you'll be working a lot with a chief petty officer, which is someone who's like a high level enlisted person.
Right.
And that person will have been in the military for something like 15 years. And they know a heck of a lot more about how to do your job than you do. And
So be smart enough to listen.
yeah, and so exactly. You got to be smart enough to listen, but sometimes you have to course correct them a bit. But, as a result, though, you have to be willing to take knowledge from someone that is, that's technically junior to you in the ranking system. And, and learning how to do that, it is why when I hired my aldermanic staff, I made sure to hire people that are all very experienced. My chief of staff is someone who's been a chief of staff for other alders for the last 20 years. Ward superintendent came from a different ward. Everyone in my office has worked in city government or state government before. In fact, the joke I always make is it's a good thing I'm the 34th Ward alderman because I can never get a job in the 34th Ward like aldermanic office if I wasn't the elected person because everyone is so experienced. But
it sounds like your military service time opened your eyes to be more aware of those around you without the biases we bring and the advantage that they bring to whatever the task is.
And it sounds like you're describing being a good manager and a good leader to have the foresight to hire the people around you that can succeed.
Well, I didn't walk into this saying I'm going to build some kind of patronage machine. I walked in saying I need to find the very best people I can so we can bring A-plus level constituent services to the 34th Ward. And I think that's what we're doing.
All right, so let's talk about the migrant situation. We talked about the mayor briefly before. The mayor and the governor seem to be at odds over several things. Obviously, Washington's a gigantic joke over all of this. Biden and the senator from Oklahoma.
As the Democratic committeeman of the 34th Ward, don't get me in too much trouble here,
I'm
Steve.
just trying to lay out the maneuverability of this. But Langford and Biden put together a bipartisan deal. Trump doesn't necessarily want it, so now people are going, well, we don't want it either. It's not politics, people. It's the border you want fixed. So Republicans, you ought to be pissed off about this. You ought to stand up and say, we asked for a deal. Let's take the deal and let's continue to work on it. But that's not what's happening. You're not in Washington. You're here. Yeah. How much of the politics of the city get in the way of this, or do you see real progress?
Well, we try and help out, where we can. And something that we did over the weekend was we held our fourth free legal aid clinic to provide work authorizations and temporary protected status to our migrant population. We did this at no cost to the taxpayers. And this one we actually did in conjunction with several unions. And we did that because we know they have the resources and relationships to get these folks into jobs, taken from us getting the documents into getting them the jobs. And, when I think about this crisis, whatever you think about the federal asylum system or how this is being handled at every level of government or the migrant population generally, they're here. They're folks that want to work. So what are our options? They can sleep. They can sleep in the streets. They can become wards of the states, or we can try and get them jobs so they can really be productive members of of our community. And that has been.
Well, do you feel like you're heading in that direction?
We do. Even yesterday we had about 200 attendees, and we got 120 of them. 120 of them or so, like applications that should be accepted, and we've been able to increase that number with each one of these. And every time we host one, we'll get a little bit of media attention. And I'll tell you what, a lot of employers will reach out and say, hey, how can I hire these people? So
Which is great.
The jobs are available.
Right. But they just need to know where to go. And the employers then need to go, well, how can I get a hold of them? You may see that they're here. You may see them, living in a hotel or on the street or wherever. But we want to be able to get them as part of your team. And I think what's important is what you said. You did this with no cost to the taxpayer, because that always seems to be an issue that comes up when we talk about the migrants. But what's the process? You had 200 people yesterday. Next time you'll do 200 more. When do we see that this is more of a machine that's working?
Yeah, well, the federal government, to their credit, has really sped up how fast it is that they get work authorization. When this process started, we were hearing it was 7 months to a year. Now, a lot of the folks that came to our program in December have already gotten their work authorization. So
why does it have to take that long? Again, let me bring Tom up here without his permission, but he just came back from Colombia. He and his wife, and in Colombia, he talked about the pressure they have from Venezuela. And when migrants come into country, they are given work visas, and they are told, you have to have a job. And there's, as I understand it, a period of time and a short period of time where that job is either assigned to them or they find it, and they go to work. In other words, if you're going to be here, we're going to give you an opportunity to work while you try to become a citizen, and you get in line. We don't need to make it as hard as it is.
I agree. I mean, broadly, I think everybody thinks the federal asylum process is screwed up. The way this is done is screwed up, and I hope that at minimum, and also not everyone qualifies for these things. Right now, you have to have been here before July 31st of 2023 and be from a certain countries, but of which Venezuela is one of them, and that's the bulk of the people, of course. But we want that to all be faster. I mean, these are folks that are able-bodied and ready to work. I mean, it's part of this process, by the way. It's 31 pages of forms. Of course, they're all in English. I've been a lawyer nearly 20 years. And I'm trying to figure out
the language
all
barrier
of this,
too.
and we're working through that. But yeah, and hopefully it will get faster, and more folks will become eligible as well.
And before we move on away from the migrants, you were talking about toys and donating toys.
Yeah. No, I like you tee me up for the feel-good story, and I still can't get there. I appreciate it.
It's coming.
I love the feel-good story. I know you're going to tell it, but if we want to donate in your ward or other wards, whether it be toys or clothes or shoes, there are organizations or places that are taking that?
There are, and we have a list of them. In fact, I hesitate to do this, but email me at bill@ward34.org, and we will funnel the best place to have that.
bill@ward34.org.
Yes, my staff is going to be so pissed that I gave my email address on.
And
but like I said, I got the best staff in the city, so we can handle it.
And your chief's cell phone number is?
Okay, well, I've already pushed it. So
and let's close with this story because I like it. You've got 3 little kiddos.
I do.
And what happened over the weekend?
So one thing that was different about this legal aid clinic versus the others was that we had a lot of families and kids show up. Usually, it's just kind of all able-bodied males generally. So we had a lot of little kids, and so. We had brought, I knew there'd be a few, so we'd brought like some toys, but then when we were overwhelmed by the amount of kids, I said, well, I'm going to go back to my place and get a bunch more of my kids' toys to give. So
did you sneak in like a ninja when
I
they weren't
did.
looking?
It was like that, in fact.
Santa. It's a bag and he's taking them away.
Yeah, exactly. I was like the Grinch, I guess, in some kind of reverse way. But to them, I guess I was Santa. And we, I grabbed a bunch of toys and for the kids and gave them all out. And then, so get home, and my wife is talking to my 4-year-old daughter, and she says, Daddy gave away a lot of your toys to the migrant population. They don't have toys, so we decided to do it. Daddy did it, even though Mommy was involved in this too. And my 4-year-old said, she goes, Dad, because the kids have nothing, I'm happy that you did that.
Nice.
And then, however, so I was I like, oh, thank you, Bella. I appreciate that's what you come. That's the conclusion you came to. And then she comes back about 20 minutes later, and she goes, Daddy, I still feel great that you gave away the toys, but did you really have to give away the mushroom counting game? Is that the one? That's like my favorite toy.
Do you have no discipline?
You might have to find another mushroom counting game.
Yeah, I know, exactly.
Today.
So there we go.
I appreciate the work you do and the work you're trying to do every day. I know how much you love this city and how great you want the city and the state to be and healthy and all that. So I appreciate you coming over and your access that you give us. Not everybody does, as you know. And thanks for doing it.
Steve, always a pleasure to come on. And Jane, I always come on with Andrea, but you seem good too.
Lucky me.
Anytime.
Thank you.
As usual.
All you Greeks will see each other at cookout.
Yeah, we'll
Just
see each other
Greek
at that meeting of the elders.
Yeah.
Of course.
Dancing
We'll have
in
a good time.
circles. Yeah.
The elders. Thank you, Bill Conway. Website for your office is?
Ward34.org.
Ward34.org.